Dr. Owen Quill will go through an overview of our postgraduate programmes, and then we'll move on to our alumni panel featuring Alex Casey, Bridget Howard and Emily Clifford. And then we will take questions at the end of the webinar for anyone who has any burning questions regarding the programmes or indeed the student experience on the programme itself. Also, just a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, just to make you aware, but please do feel free to put questions in the chat and I will make the microphone live for all participants. So if you want to ask questions in the Q&A session and unmute your mic, you are welcome to do so also. So I'll hand over to you there, Owen, just to give an overview of the programmes themselves.
Hi, thanks, Una. We have essentially 3 programs at UL. We have a commercial master's, a human rights and criminal justice master's, and a general master's, which selects from both. Having said that, like all things, it gets more complicated in that the criminal justice is available both as an LLM and as an MA program. So the MA is for people who haven't done a law degree, whereas the LLM is for people who have a law degree, which includes mixed degrees with a substantial law element. Also, the human rights and criminal justice is further complicated by the fact that it's done as both an in-person and as an online degree. So that out of the way, those are the programs. The general program takes modules from the other 2. It doesn't have standalone modules. Essentially, it was a program we put together when we decided that if we were offering the other 2 programs, we should allow students the opportunity to create their own program from within the modules that we're running without necessarily following either of the 2 LLMs that were focused on either commercial or criminal law. So that's just a little bit of background on what the programs are about. The details of the modules are available online. I would just say, if you're looking up the modules in the LLM General, the list isn't always updated to include every new module that's been created for the other 2 programs. So if you find something listed for the commercial or the criminal programs in the specific listings for them, then those on the general program will be able to take those as well, even if it doesn't show up on the list. That's just a bit of housekeeping for the law school's website. So with that, I'll go straight to the panelists now. I'll ask them a couple of general questions, and they can take turns on offering their view. But essentially, you know, what was it about UL that made you pick UL? If any of you would like to come in on that. Why masters at UL?
I can take this one.
Thanks.
Similar to Bridget, I'm not actually sure about yourself, Alan, but I actually had the chance of studying at UL for my undergrad. So when it came to choosing a university where I wanted to pursue my master's, I already had sort of first-hand experience as to what student life at UL is like. So for me, what really stood out during my undergrad was the quality of the lecturing and also the quality of the campus facilities. So I'm sure you've probably heard this before, and it's a statistic that UL are very proud of, but UL graduates, they do get the most jobs out of any Irish universities outside of Dublin. So for me, when I was pursuing my master's, you know, the end goal was employment, and that was the statistic that really stood out to me as well. The UL library was also being built at the time of my undergrad, and I felt that I had to stay on another year to be able to benefit from that as well. And it is a world-class facility that they have. So that was also a pulling factor, because law students do spend a considerable amount of time in the library, more so than other courses. So it's nice to have that facility on hand for students as well. Also, I'm quite big into sport, so the sporting facilities, as well as the clubs and societies at UL, are second to none. They really do have a great agenda for the year, and just to be able to use the sporting facilities throughout my time there was something that I really wanted to carry through into my master's. So for me, UL felt like home, and I didn't consider anywhere else.
Thanks. Nice mixture of reasons. Do either of the other two want to jump in, or does that sound fairly comprehensive?
It's hard to build on that. I think Emily hit all the points that I would have said as well. I mean, studying at undergrad was such an enjoyable experience in UL. I loved it. And when it came to deciding where I wanted to pursue my postgrad, seeing that UL had a master's program that suited exactly what I wanted to study, it was a no-brainer for me. I just knew it was the place I wanted to be.
Great. Yeah, and actually, Emily mentioned the library. Even I'm impressed by the library. I've seen lots of libraries, but ours is slightly different from anything I've seen before.
I haven't seen anything like it since.
It encourages much more sort of interactive activity. The old days of, you know, keep everything quiet and stay away from each other, and you know, no eating or drinking. All of that seems to have gone by the wayside. So it's quite a different and collaborative area a lot of the time. I mean, it still has the sitting alone spaces if you want them, but it does seem to encourage things that I haven't seen in other libraries. So that maybe is worth pointing out to people.
There's something there for every type of studier, I suppose.
Yeah. And does anyone want to say anything nice about the program themselves, the programs themselves, what you actually got out of them?
Yeah, so I obviously chose the International Commercial Law Masters, and for me, when I was choosing a master's program, what was sort of at the forefront of my mind was that I really enjoyed practicing law, but on a more international scale. So it was really the internationalness of the masters that really was the deciding and pulling factor for me. As well as like the module selection. You obviously have your core modules, but the choice of electives was really vast, and there really was kind of something for everyone to tap into different sort of niche areas. So that was something like of the course that I really enjoyed. And then when I sort of did a deeper dive into the modules themselves, I really liked the way the course was taught. Sort of different to my undergrad. I felt like it was a lot more assignments based, which really allowed for more sort of independent learning and independent thinking, which is something that I really enjoyed, because that's kind of, you know, how you're going to be working post college anyway. So it really sort of led into that sort of work environment. I also really enjoyed that a lot of the modules lent to being able to practice your public speaking. I find that that's not something that undergrad students really get to sort of develop. So it's also a skill that's just essential for any workplace, particularly if you want to practice law in the future. So I really enjoyed that a lot of the modules sort of lent to that experience as well.
Thanks. Yeah, you hit on something there. I do emphasize to students on the program, but it's no harm emphasizing to people who haven't yet picked the program that a taught postgraduate course is not like undergraduate bigger. It is a conceptually different approach. I mean, they're described as taught programs, but that's maybe a bit of a misnomer. It's more structured research, that your research is broken into discrete subjects, but you're doing most of the teaching yourselves, rather than having very instructor-led teaching.
Yeah,
like
just to highlight as well. Just to highlight as well that I recently just completed the PPC 1 and 2 courses at Blackwell last year. So a lot of the ways that they teach those courses would sort of echo how UL approach their masters as well. So if there are any students that are considering maybe going down that route of practicing, that it's great to get that experience first before you sort of deep dive into the realms of the Law Society.
That's nice to know. Bridget or Alex have anything to add on that?
It's hard to build on these statements after you guys touched on so many of the talking points, but like to echo what Owen said, one of my favorite parts about the program was the amount of autonomy that you have and formatting your own research, and you really do have a lot of freedom that you don't have in undergrad to focus on areas that you find the most interesting. So just to echo what you guys have already said.
And Alex, was it interesting to have something different on the general rather than focused on one of the specific masters?
I actually was on the international commercial law masters as well myself. But yeah, sorry, I don't know. Can you hear that as well? There's a little bit of
Yeah, sorry, they
a
had
noise.
they had you listed here on as the general. But,
No,
someone's
you're
got their
fine. You're
paperwork
fine.
wrong. Sorry about that. And my
yeah,
memory isn't what it used
no,
to
you're
be.
fine. The one thing I might just add to that was that personally, what I really enjoyed about it was also the prospect of doing a dissertation, which I appreciate is probably not the attractive part for lots of people, but that was sort of where I was coming from, that I sort of wanted to do that sort of further research and to really delve into a topic. I would note that I know with the international commercial law masters now, you don't have to do a dissertation. So in case that's a deal breaker for people, I know they're bringing in things like it might be possible to do like an internship placement instead of
we
the
have a limited number of intern placements now. I mean, it's not that everyone in the program is going to be able to do it. Most people will still end up doing a dissertation, but there are some alternate options that we're trying to work into the program. We might hopefully be able to work them into the other programs too over time, but right now it's the commercial is leading the way on that. Sinead has done a bit on arranging internships with various places, which will be hopefully developing further in the future. So thanks for that clarification. How did you find the LLM in developing your careers afterwards? I see that you have interesting careers now that you're finished. How did you find the LLM kind of worked into that? Anyone? You're all slightly stunned by that.
Bridget is talking or not. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry.
I can take this one. So it's just how have I developed my career since leaving UL. So like I previously mentioned, I studied my undergrad at UL, I studied my master's at UL, and then once I left, I moved to Dublin, and I just pursued a paralegal job in the year after I completed my master's, and I did that while I was simultaneously studying for my FE1 exams, and just to gain more work experience. At this point, I wasn't entirely sure what sort of route I wanted to go down, but I was very lucky to undertake a paralegal role in a large international firm up in Dublin, and that's actually where I still am to date. So I did my paralegal role there for just over a year and a half, and then I started my training contract in the same firm, which is about 2 years. During that time, then I completed the PPC 1 and PPC 2 professional practice courses with the Law Society, and I recently just qualified as a solicitor since November of last year. So that's sort of my career trajectory to date. I am very fortunate to work in a large international firm, and I definitely credit my time at UL, particularly the international masters. I know during all the interview stages that I had that they were particularly interested in my time in UL and, you know, what the course entailed and how an international masters would be able to benefit me while working at an international firm. So that's sort of a whistle stop tour.
Oh, that's great. And Bridget, so you did study in the US as well as in Limerick. So how did you find that the study in Limerick built upon your other educational experiences?
Yeah, so as a part of my undergrad, I did a semester abroad in Texas, and even before I was fortunate enough to be picked for that program, as a part of my undergrad, did my co-op or work experience, for those that aren't familiar with the term, with an attorney's office in California. So having completed that semester abroad in Texas and working with the attorney in California, I was able to get a really good in-depth knowledge of the American legal system and be able to get the theory side of things in Texas and the practical side of things in California, just to understand how that system works. And then within the commercial law masters, I was able to compare the two, like is what it says on the tin, international commercial law. And there's a lot of comparing. We even did presentations in international business associations where we basically just compared two different jurisdictions. So I felt this experience I had in my undergrad was just made perfectly for this master's. Not that you need to have that background going into it. You're well equipped going in through any other program, I'd say, but it was just the bow on top, and it felt like this program was kind of made for my experience and to build on that. And then, of course, now that I'm working in Evershed Sutherland, which is the most global full service firm in Ireland, that's our little tagline. It feels like that, and also my experience at Evershed Sutherland was laid down through my master's program, being awarded the scholarship from Evershed Sutherland, which I understand Alex also was fortunate enough to be awarded. And this master's gave me my relationship with Evershed Sutherland, which led me to become a trainee here, and I will be qualifying as solicitor here in 2025, which is coming up shortly. So it just feels like this UL experience has really put me on the path where I am now in an international firm in Ireland, which is exactly what I wanted going in. So if anyone has these kind of ambitions, I would highly recommend this program for them.
Of course, Alex, you've done a bit of teaching with us as well, haven't you?
Yes, my sort of career goals type of story here might be something a little bit different to some of the people here. Maybe that's interesting, maybe that's not. But essentially my sort of scenario was that I was actually lucky enough that I completed an internship with A&L Goodbody during my undergraduate program, and I actually had a training contract with them going into the masters. So I was someone who very much sort of still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I'm sure there's a lot of people maybe who are still a little bit indecisive in terms of there's lots of, I suppose, different routes you can go with a law degree, and I was someone who was very much interested in maybe going a sort of more academic route, sort of research, teaching, that sort of thing. So I suppose for me, I very much saw the masters as sort of a good opportunity to kind of get a taste of that. So it was kind of, I suppose, in terms of how that has kind of played out, in terms of academic sort of career goals. I'm now doing quite a bit of teaching. Got lots of really good opportunities through UL. During my time in the masters, doing some tutorial classes for undergraduate students, doing work with the UL disability services, things like that, to kind of just get a bit of a foot in the door. And now at the moment I'm doing sort of 5 days a week, all across the country practically. So yeah, that's kind of that really helped me with that sort of side of my ambitions, and it's really sort of, I suppose, it's given me the confidence as well to, with both the teaching and the research side of it, with having done a dissertation substantial length and things like that. It's helped me a lot in that sense. But even on the practical side of the training contract with A&L Goodbody, I took the time as well during the masters to be able to sit some F1 exams, which are the solicitor entrance exams. So I think the masters gives you a lot of flexibility for things like that, if you want to apply for certain things and do these other sort of exams, or pursue other things, or just pursue teaching. So yeah, that's sort of, I suppose, the slightly unique position of myself.
Yeah, well, it's good to be able to show off the range of things that we have, that it's not all practitioner focused, but it can be very effective for working in practice, but there are other options. I was one of those who never wanted to practice, did my law degree, but then realized that practicing wasn't for me, but found that there were still things you could do with a law degree other than practice. And many moons later, I'm still at it, decades later, over 30 years at UL now. So helping other people and do what they want to do is, I suppose, a side that's not seen as much. And if I could just ask you as well, Alex, you were involved with the Plassey Law Review during your time at UL as well, weren't you?
Yes, no, this is a very interesting opportunity that you have when studying at UL. We've a very strong law review in place at the moment. It's called the Plassey Law Review, and I think it's one of those really good opportunities, particularly at a postgraduate level, to sort of get involved in student life, kind of, you know, life on campus. It's particularly obviously appropriate to someone who is, you know, maybe at a slightly more advanced stage, has done, you know, maybe studied law previously via degree or something like that, to get involved in that. And, you know, that's just one example of something. They've great events throughout the year. Of course, it's also one of those things that looks good on a CV as well. But yes, there's the Plassey Law Review. There's the Law Society in UL, as I'm sure if there's people from UL on this call, be well familiar with. And that's getting more and more of a sort of postgraduate focus as time goes on. I was also involved in, I played rugby in my time in UL. I played that at undergraduate level, and I was able to keep that up again during my LLM. So again, sort of speaks to sort of the flexibility that you can have with sort of building your own curriculum. But yeah, lots of opportunities to get involved in lots of things. But the Plassey Law Review is definitely a fantastic one, in particular. So great ways to enjoy your time while also maybe sort of building the CV, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. Would any of you have sort of any advice you know, if you could picture yourselves a few years ago, what would you tell your younger self now about the program and where it might take you? Or is there anything you could say to you know, to the audience out there?
I can take this one. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of different advice that I would give in sort of all aspects. And I've definitely been on the receiving end of advice, as well as looking for it. But I would sort of just say that like law can be quite a long and challenging road. However, it is a very rewarding one. And it can definitely be made easier by sort of developing your own network, whether it be like your college network, a professional network, or just, you know, your own friends that are sort of in a similar, you know, career position as yourself. And those long days studying, whether it be for your college exams, whether it's your master's exams, FE1s, the PPC 1 and 2 exams, it's definitely made a lot easier by having a network. And you know, I've expanded my network to students of like all colleges, whether it be Trinity, UCD, like DCU, any of those. However, it is my UL network that I definitely value the most. Bridget and I actually studied together in our undergrad, and we also did the same masters, and now she works next door to me, and we're still friends. We've studied together for FE1s. You know, we've bounced ideas off each other for Blackhall. And you know, our working careers are no different. So I think just, you know, being able to establish a network really makes the long path a lot easier. And I think UL is something that's something that they do particularly well.
Yeah, I take it others out there doing undergrad law would be familiar with the idea that law students do tend to hang out together. They do become a group of their own. But it's interesting to see how it continues at postgrad level, even though you have the, you know, the autonomy in the programs and you're not all working on the same stuff.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see that you still keep the networking.
Bridget isn't the only one in our master's course that I'd still be in contact with. It is quite a small course. Like, the numbers are considerably smaller than undergrad level. So you do spend quite a lot of time together, and you do get the chance to sort of develop those relationships. And I've even surprised myself what relationships I've been leaning on since I've left UL. So it's a great opportunity to get to do that.
Absolutely. I think, to build on Emily's advice there, I might separate my advice into two different categories. My first bit would be specifically towards the master's program. I would just say, to really benefit from it, you need to put your own initiative in. You need to, like, taking a little bit of time and having a look at your coursework before the classes, because they are a lot more conversational based. It's a lot of independent research, and to really benefit the most that you can, like, to put in that little bit of work will pay off in reams. And then, aside from the master's, my main advice to anyone pursuing the legal career is try not to compare yourself to anyone else in your course. Like, post-graduation, everyone is on their own timelines, and it can be really easy to get bogged down and to look at what everyone else is doing. Really just try to keep your eyes in your own lane, not to compare yourself. And a big piece of advice I've gotten is, like, when an opportunity doesn't go to plan, there's always something else coming down the line. I've seen throughout the last few years, like, when people have gone for milk round interviews, or they've completed an internship and maybe not gotten a position, all of those people have ended up in great firms. Even though one firm says no, there's always another that will say yes, and that might be the better fit for you. Every firm has a culture, and really take note of that when you're applying for internships, and they really do live their culture. So if you have a look at that, see where suits you, and really go for that, and just keep in with your network, keep motivated, and everything will work out the way it's supposed to be. Not to sound too cliched, but it is a long road, and you have to keep motivated as best you can.
That certainly sounds like good advice. And Alex, you also had the summer placement with Chief Justice as well, didn't you?
Yes, no, this is another fantastic opportunity that I was afforded during my LLM studies. So for those who may not know, the Chief Justice Summer Placement Program is effectively an internship, but you essentially intern as assisting a judge of the Irish Superior Courts up in the Four Courts in Dublin. So it's generally either one or two people per sort of year would get nominated by the university to go up. There was two of us in my year that got selected to be a part of this program. So I was assigned to Justice Michael Toomey of the High Court. He's one of the main commercial list judges in Ireland. So it was very much sort of my neck of the woods, doing the International Commercial Law Masters. And that was just an incredible experience, really, from start to finish. Of the insight that you can get from something like that is obviously sort of unmatched. But even just on terms of the actual work, being able to sort of be involved in sort of proofreading an actual judgment that's going to go out, or doing any bit of research towards it or anything like that. It's another one as well that was really great for all of that networking and building contacts, things like that. It is possible to kind of also go that route in terms of a career. You can get a more excuse me a longer term sort of 3-year position as what they call a judicial assistant, or just basically just a longer version of the same thing. So I know that's something that sometimes appeals to people who are in the process of trying to qualify and trying to secure a job, maybe long-term sort of solicitor, barrister direction or something like that. But yeah, that was a really fantastic program that I only got the opportunity to be involved in during my LLM. So credit to the master.
Yeah, it's nice to emphasize that, because a few years ago it was a position that didn't exist. So it's nice for people to know that there are widening ranges of options in what you can do in a career. So Thanks, everyone, for all the interesting insights. Now, rather than me ask you questions, I suppose this is about the audience who've come in to listen and find out more about the program. So maybe if we could go to a Q&A now, Una, and see if the audience has questions.
Yeah, I've dealt with some of the questions there in the chat, just a couple of questions there on programs related to cybersecurity. Law and technology would be one relevant to that person. And just another one there on the best option for qualified solicitors, women in their late 40s, early 50s, and just put the LLM International Commercial Law might be the best option for them with regard to the area that they're looking to get into. But they'd need an undergraduate law degree, and they'd need, if they don't have that, they would need recognised prior learning and a review with the course director as well. We just have one question coming in there, Owen, just on the serious crime investigation. This person has done a BA in political science. I could nearly answer that, but I know it is restricted entry to the guards, but you might maybe elaborate on that as well, just to say that there isn't entry for other cohorts on that programme.
Oh yeah, the Garda programme.
Yeah, the MA Serious Crime Investigation programme there.
Yeah, that I sort of did discuss that amongst the programs, because I was taking it, this was for a general audience and just focus on the Human Rights and Criminal Justice Masters is our criminal offering. The policing one is, as I say, specifically to the Gardaí, and I wasn't expecting them to be the target audience for today's seminar.
Yeah, so there it is restricted entry, but as Ona said, the LLM Human Rights and Criminal Justice might be one that you could apply to there as an alternative program. Just ask Owen just on applications to programs as well, and as a course director reviewing programs, do you have any advice for potential applicants in terms of their application and what they should include and that sort of thing from your point of view?
Well, I suppose the primary thing is the degree, the undergraduate degree, that it's suitable for the program. We do also have the option, as you mentioned, if people don't have a degree in law, if they have experience, then that can be taken into account in determining eligibility. But that would then require them to explain their circumstances more extensively if they want to do an LLM. Of course, for the criminal justice, you can take the MA option. So if you don't have a law degree, you can still apply to do the MA. But for the commercial and the general, they are LLMs. They don't have an MA option within them. So I suppose if you have a non-law degree and you don't have legal experience, then the criminal justice option is still there, because you can do it as an MA. I say criminal justice, it's human rights and criminal justice. So there's a rights element to the issue as well, not just a criminal law element. But yeah, people should keep that in mind if their primary degree isn't in law, but they have an interest. And yeah, in addition then to having a degree, there's the question of maybe a supporting statement to explain why you're interested in the program. Those are generally short, but it can be useful for a course director to see that when they're looking at an application, to see what the person's interest is and see how it aligns with the program.
We have a question here on the LLM General. You'll be glad to hear, Owen. So if you were to complete the LLM General, would you still be considered a good candidate to work in a commercial law firm? What are the benefits of the general LLM as opposed to the other masters available? And I assume they're talking about the international commercial law as well, the comparison between the two.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's the fact that you have the flexibility to pick modules from outside of that program. I mean, you could still take some commercial subjects, but you could choose to, say, add a human rights subject on top of that. And of course, while the human rights modules were designed with the human rights and criminal justice program involved, if you're doing the general, you can look at human rights issues as they relate to, say, for example, private law. So if you are on a human rights module and you're on the LLM General, then your topic of investigation in human rights can have a commercial dimension to it. So although the module wouldn't be offered to students exclusively, say, on the commercial law masters, someone on the general could take one of the human rights subjects, but include a commercial human rights interaction in their point of focus. So it does give you a little bit of flexibility to do some different things that you don't get to do on either of what you might call the more targeted programs. So yes, even if you're doing the general rather than the commercial, you could still apply it to a commercial job later on, in that you would have some commercial subjects and you might have something a little bit different. As I say, something like a human rights focus on aspects of the commercial sphere that might be a little bit unique, give you a little something that's different from others in the market. And it's always nice to have a little something that stands out. It doesn't have to be that your entire program is different. Sometimes it's just, you know, one bell or whistle to add to the other things that are there, that are shared with other candidates, that might just give you that little edge.
We just have a couple of questions on the LLB, which I'll group together there as well. Just the one question on the approach and that the level of study is more monitored on the LLB as opposed to the LLM. I can nearly answer that and say it is, but you might elaborate between LLB study and LLM study in terms of, I suppose, autonomy and so forth. And then the other question is just on career pathways coming out of the graduate entry LLB program, criminal justice students. An alternative to, say, professional pathways such as solicitor and barrister pathways. So you might elaborate on some of your students, past students at undergraduate level, and where they might have gone.
Yeah, and if any of the other three want to jump in at any point, they can, about the differences between LLB and LLM. But I suppose from my point of view, when you're delivering a module to the LLBs, it's largely the lecturer delivers a set program and it has a high degree of control over what topics are covered and in what depth, and then how the assessment is set, and there very often will be some element of end of semester exams, whereas at the LLM level, it's largely about students writing essays from anywhere within the syllabus. So the students have a degree of autonomy about what within the syllabus they're interested in. Some lecturers may set you know, a set of essays and let you pick one from a set of essays. Or myself, I'm more inclined to say pick anything on the syllabus. But there are slight variations, but there is a greater degree of choice about which bit of the module you focus on for assessment, and it is more about you studying it for yourself and writing an essay on it, as opposed to taking an exam that's been set by the lecturer. Now, I do appreciate that some undergrad modules have an element of essay writing as well, and perhaps in UL undergrad modules, maybe a little more than some of the other colleges around the country. We do have a fairly wide range of assessments, but I think the degree of latitude on the LLM is more significant. But it's also the fact that the actual delivery of the module, I think some of the speakers here have mentioned it, is more interactive. It's not so much about the lecturer coming in and telling you stuff. It's more about, I think Bridget talked about it earlier, about you doing prep and coming in to talk about your own ideas about the issues raised. And again, it depends on the module, but I know for some of us, even the topics that are raised are picked by the students, not by the lecturer. So I hope that addresses that one.
And just the career pathways.
And yeah,
just,
that was the other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, all law degrees have, you know, to some extent, the professions as a potential career pathway. But there are a range of others. You know, certainly when I was a student, I never wanted to be a practitioner. I just got fortunate that a lecturing job came up. I got it and decided at that point to go back and do postgraduate study in order that I would have the qualifications to get a permanent academic job. And that worked out for me. But there are a range of other things as well. And I think Alex was talking about it there, that there are jobs that exist now in the legal sphere that didn't exist before, like a judicial assistant. There are also jobs in the court service that were an unknown to people for generations. It's a behind the scenes working in the mechanics of the legal system, not operating as a lawyer, but operating in the administration of the court service. But there are also a whole variety of jobs for you know, both public sector and in the private sector. For example, NGOs interact with the law a lot, particularly if you're looking at things from the human rights perspective. An awful lot of how human rights plays out in the world isn't always through practitioners. Very often it's through organizations. And so there are a variety of jobs within those organizations. Some of them interact, so you can have overlap. So for example, you could qualify as a practitioner and then work for a non-governmental organization rather than in the sort of traditional solicitor sphere. But there are jobs within the NGOs that you don't have to be a practitioner. There's also probably jobs in the private sector that didn't exist a number of years ago. So, for example, an awful lot of workplace functions are heavily regulated. Labor law and privacy law are heavily regulated areas. Firms who nothing specifically to do with law need people to do things. And while, again, very often they would hire practitioners to do a certain amount of that work, having a legal education but not necessarily being a practitioner gives you scope to be involved in these things as well. Maybe in a way that people didn't think of years ago. When I qualified, if I wanted to say work in HR, the first thing to say, well, oh, well, you're a lawyer. Why don't you become a solicitor and then, you know, be an in-house solicitor for a company? Well, like, you don't need to be a solicitor to understand HR and be in a HR administrator within a company. And I think that's probably better appreciated nowadays. I see some nodding from the panel that those sort of jobs exist now that maybe didn't exist a couple of decades ago. So maybe I hope that answers.
No, that's great. And
And if
actually,
any of the panel would like to come in with anything, feel free.
No, that's great, Owen. And we had people from the courts service actually. They're visiting this week actually, so some of the fourth year students might be in contact with them soon enough. Just one final question on the LLM versus the graduate LLB. Is the LLB more exam based, would you say, than some of the LLM programs that we have on offer as well?
Yeah, well, the LLB takes you through all the undergrad legal subjects. Although it's graduate entry, you're actually taking the modules that undergrad law students would take. So you're sitting in with them. So whatever is aimed at, say, Law Plus or Law and Accounting, would also be offered to the LLB students on the graduate entry program.
No, that's great. And there's a question on the timetable there, which unfortunately neither myself or Owen can answer until.
No, we don't get to control that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not released until the summer. So yeah, we won't be able to answer that, unfortunately. Nathaniel, I think it is. Just one other question from another person here. Would be more suitable for me to pursue a Bachelor of Arts in Applied Policing and Criminal Justice instead of the Masters of Arts in Serious Crime Investigation, given my circumstances. This is the person that's doing the BA in Political Science. You wouldn't gain entry onto the Applied Policing programme either, so the only programme that would be available to you would be the MA in Human Rights and Criminal Justice if you're wanting to do postgraduate level programme, or else the BA in Criminal Justice at undergraduate level either. I'm assuming you don't want to do another BA, so the MA pathway on the Human Rights and Criminal Justice programme is probably your best option there.
Or graduate entry LLB.
Yes,
But that,
the other
that
option.
that does make for a long road.
Yeah. So I suppose there's two options there for that person. I've unmuted the mics if anyone else wants to speak up, and if not, we'll wrap up there if there's no more burning questions at the moment. I don't see anyone unmuting at all there. Oh, we've one final question there from Nathaniel. What were the and this is for the panel actually, what were the challenges experienced by the speakers who have graduated? And I presume that's in terms of career development and so forth. So I don't know who wants to take that first.
I don't
Also,
mind.
it's relating to your studies actually, not to your career. So yeah, what did you find challenging, I suppose, within the program?
Post-graduation, I can't comment on studying beyond the FE1s. Like, that is a mountain to climb. At least from now, I understand that students have the opportunity to tick away at one FE1 at a time, whereas back in our day, they only brought in that rule post us graduating our masters. So I would say the FE1s would have been the most difficult part of this career to date. But I mean, you give them the time and the effort that they deserve and you'll be fine. But that would be the main challenge, I'd say, especially if you're having to work while doing FE1s. It is a hard road, but doable. And as Emily has said, like, the reward at the end of it it's worth it. I hope, anyway. I'll let you know next year.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
In terms of challenges for studying, I guess I think, like we obviously touched on it earlier, just that the LLM course is taught in a completely different format than your general LLB. So in terms of it being challenging, I think just like the level of engagement that's required between the tutorials and the lectures, and even just, you know, doing the course materials that Bridget had touched on. I think there's a certain expectation in the undergrad course that you can kind of just sail away until rag week is over and then put your head down. But I think for the LLM, I think just like early engagement in the course is really fundamental to how much you're going to get out of it. So it's just that sort of shift in mindset. And then I guess then just, yeah, like Bridget said, studying for the FE1s, that is a mountain. And you know, my time at UL definitely prepared me really well for the modules that they exam during the FE1s. So in terms of course content, it wasn't that difficult, but in terms of personal commitment to actually apply yourself to do the work and to do the exams, I think that's probably the biggest challenge that you'll face. But as a UL postgrad or UL graduate, I think in terms of course content, I think like the way it's taught in UL is second to none. So I didn't have any issues on that front.
That's good to hear, Emily. Alex, do you have anything to add yourself?
Yeah, I honestly, I would just like to echo everything that's already been said. I think there's some sort of an alarm again in my background, so I don't want to have that ringing in everyone's ears. But
well,
honestly,
if you need to leave because there's a fire, please leave. Don't stay on the call anyway.
It'll be okay. We'll risk it.
Oh, you're muted there, I think, if you were going to add anything.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I think, look, it's a lot of what's already been said. I think I suppose the challenges of studying for the LLM, the more academic side of it, is, I suppose, yeah, that maybe it's a bit less, what's the word, sort of almost it's less maybe spoon fed to you in the same way that maybe with an undergraduate, it might be a lot of this is sort of the right answer. This is what we want you to say. Learn this off and repeat it back to me or something, you know, being a bit cynical there, but that type of an idea. It's a lot more independent, a lot more sort of getting your thinking cap on sometimes and doing a bit of research yourself. But I suppose the flip side of that is it is a lot more interesting, and it's kind of hard to put your finger on, but you know, the modules, the way they're taught, the way you're encouraged to sort of research them, and even just the subject matter of most of what you'll be doing, and the fact you have the control over what you'll be doing. It's both. So I suppose it's the two sides of it. It's challenging, but assuming, you know, that you will find it more interesting, that I suppose makes it easier as well.
And just to add as well, just on the LLM programs, I know for some of the programs, particularly the LLM MA Human Rights and Criminal Justice, they do field trips to Limerick Prison and to Limerick Garda Station and so forth. So they do a lot of experiential learning. I know there's other trips potentially to The Hague if there's numbers that are willing to travel. So, you know, there's a lot of kind of experiential learning and seminar talks from people visiting the faculty as well and the School of Law. So just to add that as well, just on just a further element to the programs and to the School of Law itself. I don't know if you have anything else to add on before we wrap up at all.
No, thanks for adding in those little extras. Yeah, we do have guests at times to bring additional issues to students' attention, which can be interesting. And I do take Alex's point. I actually agree with him on that. That there is an element to which at LLM level you're already an expert because you have a degree. You know, I think students don't realize that they're not just students anymore. They are also people with expertise because they've gotten over a major hurdle in getting a degree. So there is probably a greater element of critical analysis at postgrad level. That it is a step up of sorts. So I think Alex hit that pretty well right.
I don't see any more questions coming through. I know you have to leave, Owen, to teach at 2.
Unfortunately,
so, we might wrap
I'm required
up there.
elsewhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks very much to the panel for coming in and giving us of their time and for their interesting insights. I'm sure it will be of great help to people trying to make up their mind what to do. And it was great for me to catch up with them again and hear a little bit about what they're doing. And it's always nice to hear some nice stuff about ourselves too. It's not just me saying it, it's other people who've been through it. Thanks very much. And thanks, Una, for organising this.
No worries, no worries. And if anyone wants to contact us, I'll pop my email in here if you want to send any queries to me, and I can redirect as needed as well. All right, thanks guys. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks for guys.